Hello again, Card Beauty. It's RJ back with another video. Let's get to it. Today's topic is games. Baseball and games have gone together for many, many, many years. Going back to the 1800s. Ever since they created baseball, people at home, kids alike, were playing it, and then they wanted to play it during the winter months indoors. So they created all kinds of board games, dice games, card games, you name it, to recreate the game of baseball, but in a smaller setting. That is, in fact, what this background is. I've told you guys a number of times before. What this background is a board game. Championship Baseball 1987 by Milton Bradley. Came with a 30 card set. Actually, baseball cards you can find online to buy. They pull them out of the game. Championship Baseball. That's the background I have. It is simply a board game. So today's random Mike Schmidt items of the day are game related. For example, here is a 1991 scratch off game. There was a number of players, 4 panel strips of this one. This one's just a singular Mike Schmidt one. Little boxes to scratch off in turn. On the back here was the rules on how to play the game. And you would take turns scratching off these little dots that tell you what happened in your game. And again, it was a 4 panel, so you would have more of these. If you actually bought this in the old days, there were 4 of them, so you'd have plenty of circles to scratch off. This is just one of 4, and it was a game. Another one. This here is simply a trivia card from a game. I actually pulled this one out. I have 4 of these from that game because Mike was one of the answers to the questions. I'm going to flip this over. Who led the National League in home runs in 1983? I'm going to pause right there and let you guys look at the questions and see how many you guys can get, because then I'm going to flip it over. Pause there if you want to read the questions and guess, because here's the answers. All right? And Mike was prominently featured on 2 of the answers to that question on that card. So I actually keep that in my collection of Mike Schmidt stuff. Another one is a card, the King of Hearts, from a Baseball Heroes set. It's called Baseball Heroes, Heroes of Baseball. It's a card, just standard playing cards. They made Mike the King of Hearts on that one. And lastly, this is some random game card. I'm not even sure what the game is. It says down here Grand Slam Baseball. So I have to assume that that was part of the game. And you can see here it's a dice game of some sort. So there's all kinds of cards that ended up being games. And then there were cards like the Milton Bradley ones that were part of the game. Classic is the best example. So what I have here is what is known as the Classic Travel Update, the 1990 Travel Edition. Okay, and it is 100 cards, I believe. Well, it might be, I'm sorry, 50 playing cards right here. And you can see in the back there's a small game board, pieces, and a dice to actually play the game. And up top here, I'm going to put it right there. You can pause the video and see all the players that were a part of this game, the cards themselves. Nolan Ryan prominently features on front. And Nolan, if you look real close, is holding an old Bo Jackson classic game from the 1988 set, I believe. Classic's been around for a long time doing games. Well, had been around, I should say. They put out all kinds of sets. Here is my 1980 set, 1989. I don't even remember. And it's a second series, because this card set, well, not a second series, it's a later run, because this card set goes to 200, but starts at 150, and this is the red set from that year. Here we go. Let's see on the back. Okay, so it was sometime in '88, and that's what Classic did. They'd release multiple series with different colors in it, in the boxes, in their games or whatever. One of the main game card, what do I want to say? One of the main games released in the late '80s, early '90s that featured baseball cards as part of the game. So here you go. The trivia question today, in light of games, let's talk about baseball as a game for a second, okay? I don't want to go too much boring history with you today about where baseball sprang from, but suffice it to say, in the mid 1800s, baseball was taking off as a sport, primarily played by, believe it or not, gentlemen's clubs, you know, workers in trade unions and things like that. You know, people who were professionals in their jobs also played. They had gentlemen's clubs, and they would play baseball once a week on a Sunday or a Saturday as part of their club things to keep everybody happy and entertained, and a reason to have a club, so to speak. And then eventually, those were always amateur clubs, and then suddenly people started, you know, hey, a lot of people would come to watch these games, and they realized there was a market for spectators. So once in a while, they'd start charging admissions, and then they realized people wanted to come out if you won. So they wanted to win more, so they would bring in ringers to play, and suddenly those ringers wanted money. So at some point, they started paying these amateurs to play, and the powers that be who governed what baseball was at the time didn't like that and said you couldn't pay anybody, so it was always done under the table. Until one year, one team openly said, we're professionals now. There was the first team that openly went professional in baseball. That's the question. In what year and from what city was the first professional, openly professional baseball team? Be the first person to email me with that correct answer, and I will send you this set of playing cards. This is, I'm trying to look at the year, I'm trying to find that. Oh, I don't see it here. It was, oh, I'm sorry, right on the front, right on the front, 1991 baseball trading cards. This is just, it's Major League All-Stars down there, so it's a lot of the big names. I mean, Ken Griffey Jr. is prominently featured right there in the middle, along with Ryne Sandberg and Barry Larkin, so you can tell there's some big name people. And there's 56 All-Star Game player cards, and this is what they look like. So be the first person to email me with the correct answer. I will repeat the question in the email in the description below, along with my email. When was the first professional baseball team, openly professional baseball team, in what year, and from what city? And I'll send you this 1991 pack of baseball playing cards. So today is all about games. I'm going to go mobile here for a brief second, spin around here and show you this. That is my tote of baseball games. It's pretty deep. So I'm going to go slowly, hope you don't mind, through some of my interesting, I'll call them interesting baseball games. So on the top, if you already saw, it's a well-known game, Cadco, let me get the name right, Cadco, there you go, a great Cadco game, all-star baseball game. That's what the board looked like there. It was spinners, and you had these little player cards you put in, these little discs. I pulled out my Mike Schmidt disc. This one actually is from the 60s here. This is from the late 60s or really early 70s, because this one does not contain Mr. Schmidt. It's got Joe Morgan, so you know it's not really old, but it didn't have Mike Schmidt in it. Then, recently, I got a later version. This one's from the 80s. In fact, right over there, take a look here. A 68. Well, actually, I must have got the tops wrong. This one can't be. You know what? The game itself might have been from 68 or really produced in 68. I don't know. Yeah, I think that's what it is, because this one's got a copyright date of 68 here. So I guess that was the original date of the game. But this one's a later version because it has Ryne Sandberg, Dave Winfield, and some of the more modern players in it. So I've got two of the Cadco All-Star games. They made every year for like the longest time. There's that. Then it gets into some really weird ones. Because I buy anything I can find that's a game that's really interesting. This is some kind of old electric game. Coleco Head to Head. Had to have been in the mid 80s. That's when battery powered, you know, these kind of battery powered games came out. Box is obviously trashed, but at least I still have the box. I don't think I ever played this game. It's still in here, still in the box. That's just another random game I have. Then we got this one. This is interesting. Again, I tried playing this once, didn't do a good job. It literally is another little computerized game board, but it's inside a baseball bat, because you literally, as you were playing the game, in order for anything to happen, you'd actually have to swing the bat, and the computer recognized that you swung it, and it would determine what happened in the game after you swung the bat. So just another random computerized game that I have. I have this one here. It's like one of those peg games you play at like Cracker Barrel or something. I've never taken it out of the box. I'm not even sure how to play this particular peg game, but it came with some dice, some players. You know, they made some of every sport, well, not every sport, a lot of different sports back in the day, a lot of different types of game. And I picked this up probably at like a dollar store, dime store or whatever, because it had baseball as its theme. Remember, I am a crazed collector of everything baseball. So I had to buy that when I saw it. Here's another random baseball electronic game, the kind they put out in the early 90s. They just started popping these out for everything. I've never taken it out of the box. Don't even know what the game purpose, you know, I'm not even sure how to play it. Did you see that? It looks like the sticker on this thing came off and is loose. And I went like that, the little front sticker around the screen kind of fell on me. The glue's dried out. It's not even detached anymore. Oh my word. But there you go, just another random. A lot of the games that I have are computerized because they're from the 90s or 80s, I should say. Oh, there's a big one down here. Here's the classic one. All right, this is the classic Mattel handheld baseball game from back in the mid to early 80s. This one I used to play. This one I have played. It's not in the pack anymore. And I want to tell you, I think this is not an original. I think I got this as one of the remakes they did in like the late 90s, early 2000s, because I had the football game when I was a kid back in like right around the turn of the 70s into the 80s. They started coming out with these little handheld Mattel games. And there was football and baseball and basketball and everything. And I had the football one. Never had the baseball one. And then like in the late 90s, I think, or mid 90s, they reproduced all these. They put out a duplicate. It looked exactly the same. There might have been some slight changes from the original. And does it even work anymore? Now the batteries are long dead in here. But I picked up the baseball. I think, like I said, I think this is a reconstruction of the original. I don't think this is the original, but still one of my many baseball-related games. Got an interesting one here. This one is kept in a little tote because it easily pops open. This one is it's like a game inside a game. You had to, let me see, I can't remember how to open this thing. It's actually, you got to set it up. And what it is kind of like a little pinball game, because this thing is a scorer. And if you look up here, that is a counter. It's hard to see it in there, but every time you would take this little spring-loaded bat, you'd pull it back, and you'd hit this ball, and it would slam into this glove, which is attached to this thing. So every time you could make that ball hit that glove, you would get a point. And it was like, how many points could you get in like 2 minutes or something? And that was the point of this game. But because it pops open easily, I keep it in this little Tupperware thing. It almost looks like they have a fake Nolan Ryan picture on the cover there. But that's another random baseball game I have. I'm trying to get this big one out of here, but it's difficult for me. Ugh. All right. Another giant old style computer game. Take a look at this guy. It's huge. And it's some random electronic baseball game. Again, I've never even taken it out of the box. Well, I've taken it out of the box to look at it, but I've never even played it. This one looks like it's from like the late 70s, more so than the 80s, from Microelectronics. You know, because that looks like an Oakland Athletics kind of a guy. But this is really, you know, just another giant computerized baseball game that people were putting out by the dozen, as you can see already, back in the 80s when computers were just starting to really take off. I showed you this one. Oh, let me it fell down on me here. I'm sorry, I'm all discombobulated. I showed you this one baseball game. This is to show you that they just kept popping them out. Here's another baseball game that looks practically the exact same. So again, I mean, they were just cranking these baseball and sport games. These little mini handheld electronic games were just being cranked out left and right back in the 80s and 90s. If you were a kid, you could always find more. To show you that you can always find more, here's two more. Here's the ESPN one. That's kind of cool. It's ESPN's Grand Slam Baseball. Look, it's interesting. That's Grand Slam Baseball. Well, guess what this one is? Grand Slam Baseball. You'd figure that maybe they could come up with some more unique names than always calling everything Grand Slam, but that's what they did. This one here, it's even got a date on it, so you can tell this is 1995 by Micro Games of America. So again, every time I see one of these little dollar games, I would snag it, pick it up, throw it in a corner of my collection and almost forget about it. I want to show you one more game I just picked up recently, and it's a little bit more interesting because, tip you down there, because of the subject matter and the age of this one. Put it over here, I gotta walk over and grab it. I saw this one on sale in Facebook Marketplace not too long ago, and I was able to pick it up pretty quickly. Very excited about it. Bob Feller's Big League Baseball game. I looked it up, and it's actually from the mid-50s, this one here. So I was very excited about that. You can tell this one looks like one of those old 50s style games, you know? And you open it up, it's still got the game board. There wasn't anything more than a couple red pegs. You know, those almost look like modern day battleship pegs or whatever. The instructions are there. Everything was done with this spinner. There's no cards. There's no other thing. It was just this. Take a look at that thick cardboard stock right there. That was the game. But you know, it's Bob Feller's baseball game. Great artwork with Bob on the cover. So I had to have that. I thought that was really cool to add to my collection of games that you have just seen. I've got many more card packs. I showed those off a while ago. That really represents the extent of my baseball game collection. So again, I focus on Mike Schmidt card collecting. I really do. I am working on sets, of course. I collect biographies of Hall of Famers. I collect anything interesting related to the game of baseball. And one of those things that I have done is maintain a nice collection, I think it's a nice collection, of games related to the sport of baseball. So hope you enjoyed that little trip through my collection of baseball games. I've been meaning to show that off for a while, but it's difficult to drag them out of the storage bin that they're in, sit down and go through them all, as you can see. So I hope you enjoyed that little look-see in my collection. Don't forget the trivia question. I'll repeat it in the description below. Thanks for taking a few minutes out of your day to come watch my collection, my video. Please consider like, subscribing, commenting, and all that jazz, and take care.